Welcome back to another episode of the Statues Podcast. I'm your host, Denang, and for today's episode, we're going to start this episode off with a clip.
To become successful, you need an element of delusion in your head. You need to keep fooling yourself and say, yeah, I will make it, I will do that, I will have a show on Channel 4, I will do Gasworks, I will work for Vice, I will do it, and keep feeding yourself them lies. One day, they'll become real life, you get me?
Yeah, so that was today's clip. Today's clip is very short, sweet, simple. This is something that I heavily believe in. I believe that there has to be some sort of delusion for dreams to be accomplished, for any kind of success to happen. And I want to preface this by also saying there was an episode earlier on in our podcast where we sort of talk about this, but I wanted to talk about it in more detail because in that episode we passed by it. The difference between delusion and realism. With this kind of delusion, there has to be a sense of realism. And that realism is ultimately up to you. How hard are you willing to work for this delusion to become a realism? A really good instance of this was when I was in high school. You know, I grew up heavily influenced by Korean hip hop music. And one of the things that I was influenced by, a group that I was influenced by was One Time. And One Time was a hip hop group that was under an entertainment company called YG Entertainments. And at that time, they had a saying called YG Family. And that was something that was heavily attractive to me. The family aspect of what you were doing, whether it be music, video production, whatever it was something that was super interesting to me. To see a bunch of artists come together to have fun. And this became my delusion. I started working towards this kind of a delusion where in my life, I wanted this. I wanted to create my own creative family so that we could have fun together. I kept this in mind and I never forgot it. And I remember the first instance of when this fruitioned for me. I worked for a company called BNS, and BNS at that time was what I was looking for. When I thought about YG Entertainments, when I thought about YG Family, when I thought about One Time, BNS was exactly that. They were family oriented. They were friends before they were artists. And that's what was attractive. I wanted to work with people like that. And that delusion since I was a kid fed into my path and allowed for me to walk that path and never forget where I wanted to be. And so ultimately, you know, that delusion drives you. And it drives you down a path that only you know of. Other people are going to think it's ridiculous. Other people are going to think it's weird. But you have to be so confident in your delusion, so confident that it becomes real. This delusion is the driving force, but realism is the part that makes everything stick. It is the glue that makes it possible. To have delusions is okay, but you cannot delude yourself into the impossible. There are some people that understand that, you know, like a conversation that I was having a couple days ago was someone was saying to me, like, I want to be a millionaire. And I was saying to them, like, that's awesome. That's great. You know, like you set your goals and you work towards it. When I was a kid, I didn't think about a million. I didn't think about this. What I thought about was the family aspect of my job, about being a creative, wanting to make music, make films, make anything creative. That's what I wanted. And I knew that $1 million wasn't something that was on my mind. So even now when I'm pushing towards my dreams and all this kind of stuff that I'm working on, $1 million isn't the goal. Whether $1 million happens 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, $1 million isn't the goal for me now. what's the goal for me is to continue to have fun doing what I'm doing. I've been able to have fun doing what I've been doing. There's a lot of stresses that come with this job. There's a lot of realities that come with this job. And ultimately, it's the fun that just keeps pushing me past it all. No matter what happens, I keep myself grounded because I understand that this is what's fun for me. I enjoy what I do. I love what I do. Being a workaholic is something that I want to be. I have a goal and I'm going to reach that goal. But this delusion is what allows for me to be able to even push past certain things that I may not understand in the time. When you work on yourself, there are things that you come into contact with and you're not going to understand. And there are moments within that phase of life where it's easier to give up. That is the honest truth of it. It is easier to give up. But many times, this delusion has allowed for me to kind of just fantasize about what life would be after the hardship. And that's what's gotten me out every time. Every time something horrible has happened, every time I've lost an investment, every time something hasn't worked out for me, it has never let me down because I don't let it let me down. I have a very strong delusion of my success. I am 29. I'm going on to 30 this year. And my delusions don't stop. My delusions go on until I'm 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years old, 90 years old, however long. I will reach my goals, whether it be tomorrow, whether it be, the day after, whether it be 10 years now, 20 years from now, I will reach it. But I'm also going to enjoy the fact that I can still have these delusions to motivate me, push me. These are very important personally, I think, these are very important for success. I think success is something that people have come and put a fantasy on, that it was going to be this way. But what I've come to understand after years of doing what I've been doing, success isn't the end product. Success is actually everything from the beginning to that middle. Because when you get to the end, you want more. And you will never be successful. That is where greed and, all these other things come into play. When you get $1 million, what happens? You want 2 million, you want 3 million, you want 1 billion now. Success is that portion from the beginning working up until your very end goal. If you can enjoy the successes of each step, then when you get to the goal, you won't be finished. You can keep going with the idea that this was fun. You're not going in it for, horrible reasons that one day will come and, bite you and take you down and feed into your greed. Greed is something that I see that has taken a lot of people down in this field of work, in the path to success. Be delusional, but have a realism to it. Enjoy the process, but don't get lost in it. Ultimately, everything that I grew up wanting, I ended up having. At 16, I never imagined I'd have what I have. Whether people think it's successful, I think it's successful. I was a kid that failed math. I was a kid that sucked at schooling. But 12 years down the line, and here I am, being able to do what I do, have fun while I'm doing it. And whether this journey eventually stops or whether this journey continues, I will have no regrets because I've enjoyed every second of it. Even the most stressful parts of it, I've enjoyed every second of it. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of the Statues Podcast. I know that I've been away. lately I've been trying to figure out what I want to do with this podcast. And, looking at the numbers, it's what caught me off. So I'm going to continue doing this kind of stuff without looking at the numbers, because I enjoy talking about my journey, my life, and connecting with you guys because of my journey in my life. So thank you to all those who, listen and stumble upon these videos or, this audio. I just wanted to say thank you guys so much. I'm your host, Danang, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye, guys.